So, Chris, welcome to the show.
How's it going, man? It's good to be here.
Great to have you on. So, I know you're tuning in from across the pond, and no doubt people have already um, realised from your accent that you're not here in the UK.
No,
And I'm right in saying that you're over in Austin, Texas, right now.
Austin, Texas. I am. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, as we've just heard, um, you have a real passion and an interest for helping people to really master their brain power, their performance, and their productivity. Some topics that we both have in similar, as a similar interest in optimizing and developing, and many of our listeners have exactly the same too. So we're going to get stuck into that in just a moment, but one of the things that I always find fascinating when working with coaches, trainers, people that are operating at the top of their game and helping other people to do so is how they found themselves wanting to do the things they're doing. So I'd really love to know from you, Chris, what is it? Why brain power? Why operating? Why optimizing these levels? How have you come to find yourself in this in this world?
Yeah. Good question. Well, the progression of that for me was always wanting to learn how to live better. And I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur, so I've lived abroad 9 years. I'm in Texas now, but just kind of here for the COVID thing. And I've always wanted, even since I was young, to learn how to live life just a little bit better. Like, what are the books that we can read, the podcasts that we can listen to, the people that we can hang out with that can just make that little shift in our lives to make our lives progressively a little better and a little better and a little better. And now, as you know, in the past 10 and especially like 5 years, the whole neuroscience, brain science, and the ability to understand what's happening in our brain has really reached a new level and will continue to. And I think we're still in the very infant stages of what's happening in neuroscience and the ability to understand what's happening in our brains. An easy example of that is, with brain scans and neurofeedback, quite often you can pretty much or come close to eliminating ADD and ADHD in children and adults. And that is absolutely life shifting for so many people. You can predict Alzheimer's and dementia using brain scans, and years before they even show symptoms. And so this is going to change, humanity in so many different ways, and it makes so much sense because the brains are the engines that power our lives. Without a doubt, our brains are the motors, the engines that are driving our lives. And I love Dr. Daniel Amen has this quote, and I
I was
love it.
it's, sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt. So it's so funny you brought him up already because I was just thinking
yeah,
to myself, I was like, you've got to know Dr. Amin, you've got
of
to know.
course, of
Um,
course, yeah, he's legendary. And for those that don't know, Dr. Amen is one of the original neuroscientists that really dove into this field starting back in the 80s, and he now has more brain scans, over 150,000 than any other clinic or organization in the world. And his quote is quite simple. He's just a simple, kind of blunt guy, and it is like, good life results, good brain activity. Bad life results, bad brain activity. If you have some bad life results you want to change, what do we have to do to change that brain activity? And then you got to start with scanning the brain, understanding what's going on in your life, seeing if neurofeedback is applicable to you. And so that's where it all started. Will, it was just like I wanted to live better.
so optimizing those things. And I will just say, I highly recommend for those of you that listen to this that are on Instagram, definitely follow. I think it's literally Doc Amen, Amen, if I remember
Uh-huh.
correctly on Instagram,
Yeah.
because as someone that's basically a brain scientist, the way he breaks stuff down and explains it in layman terms is fantastic. So
Yeah.
yeah, so Doc, if you listen to this, great, big shout out from the both of us there. But no, for
Yes.
everyone else that's maybe not following him right now, definitely go and check him out on Instagram. So I'm going to delve a little layer. I'm going to delve a little deeper than the surface layer. Because I get wanting to sort of optimize stuff, but what was that born from? Was there have you ever sort of looked back and seen maybe where that drive came from for you to really want to keep optimizing and developing things?
It probably the seed of it all, Will, is probably like having big dreams and then going after those dreams and being willing to do whatever I need to do to accomplish those dreams.
Mm.
And then it became, I've been an entrepreneur 14 years. I know you've been in the business for a long time as well. And so it just became like, how do I live better? How do I optimize? I become more productive to, use basically what a lot of people call like the 80-20 principle. What are the 20% of inputs that I can put in? And it gives me the 80% of results. And it was just a continual progression. And then, as you know as well, as the more people you surround yourself like this that are, dreaming really big and going after their dreams and are high performing entrepreneurs, the more we learn from one another and the more we just pick up. And it was like another step into progression. I love the fact that you can shift life results through brain scans and neurofeedback in a pretty short amount of time if you have the right training and the right equipment. And so for me, it was like, hey, I need a brain scanner in my life on a regular basis. I want to help other entrepreneurs and people out there optimize their life to their full potential, because something as simple as like getting knocked in the head when you're a kid wrestling or playing, football or just playing around with other boys or girls, can really even still be affecting your life in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and down the line. But you had no idea because we didn't have the proper technology back in the day on how to fix that. And so it's just a passion on helping all people really optimize their lives to the next level.
I think there's a few really key things that might be worth pointing out at this stage, because technology is rapidly advancing. Some of
Yeah.
the changes in technology that it's happening. In fact, I don't know if you're familiar with Mo Gawdat at all, but Mo's a friend of mine. He was the chief business officer at Google X, and
Okay.
he's just about to come on for episode 100 very,
Nice.
very, very soon. We've actually already recorded it, so I know it's a phenomenal episode talking about his new book, Scary Smart and Artificial Intelligence and all that. But the advances in technology, of how quick things are developing. When people think of brain scans, they think of going into like an MRI type
Right.
machine and days of research and tens of thousands of pounds in order to be able to do these brain scans. So is that how you do the brain scans with your clients?
No, no. Our brain scanner is a $14,000 machine, and it fits in a carry-on bag that you could take on a flight. And it's basically just, I wish I had it with me. I'd show you, but it's just basically like a hat that you put on with, it's a creative looking hat. And there's some wires connected to it, and then you plug it into the computer. And when you do the brain scan, you take 8 different tests, and the brain scanner is picking up your everything that's happening in your brain, the electricity, neurology, and how you act with stress through those tests. And then it's making a reading, and then we get a 26-page report on everything that's happening in the person's brain. And then we send it off to the neurologist, because it's an in-depth report, and you've got to be a doctor or an experienced pro to read these. And then the neurologist brings it back and gives the person a review on where they can optimize their life. So it's really simple. One of the reasons I bought it is it's one of the few devices out there that are FDA approved, and because not all the brain devices out there are, and there's a lot of fluff with brain devices out there. So maybe that's something worth mentioning as well. Do your research on the person you're working with and the device that are out there, the device that they use. That'll help you out a lot, because there can be wasted time, and even there's some devices out there too that can do damage to the brain development or brain exercise that you're doing. So it's worth doing research for everybody. But yeah, just a little hat, plug it into the computer, boom, you're done. Take
Yeah.
a 40-minute scan, and you're on your way.
So what are some really common things that people that choose to have this scan gain as a result of having the scan done. So like they get the report and it's identified X, which means they need to do Y to get Z results. So what are some of the results that they get, and what are some of the things that it identifies? What are some of the changes they have to make, and what are some of the results they get as a result of that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most surprising ones is, meditation is a huge thing for everybody. And I think meditation is overly generalized. So basically, what we find when we do a brain scan is that the meditation that works for Will doesn't necessarily work for Chris. And sometimes a person, in the way their brain reacts, they need a walking meditation or an eye open meditation or eyes closed meditation. They need to be laying down and not necessarily sitting up in like the lotus position. And so people are shocked because there's a lot of high performers out there, and people in general that just have so much trouble doing the closed eye meditation. And the recommendation for them is do it longer, right? Just close your eyes, do it longer, breathe deeper, sort of thing. And it doesn't necessarily always work best for the different types of brains that are out there. We've seen many high performing entrepreneurs that a closed eye meditation makes them more stressed than it does actually like lighting a candle and keeping your eyes open, or opposed to like a walking meditation. This is why too, we also find out like if a person needs to be standing up when they work as opposed to sitting down, it's because their brain activity. Somebody that really has a lot of high intense activity, a standing desk can absolutely shift their lives, as opposed to like I get annoyed by standing desks, me personally, and so I can do it for like maybe 30 minutes, and I'm like I gotta sit. And so you find out little things like this, but also a brain scan is very similar to a blood test. So anybody that's ever gotten a blood test, you realize pretty quickly by the results that you may be lacking B12 or magnesium or this supplement or that vitamin. And then you start to take that vitamin, and quite often you feel better, right? And so brain scan does the same thing, but for the brain. So you're seeing what supplements, when you do a brain scan, what supplements could really help you out, and what ones you should not be taking, sort of thing. So brain scan will tell you, okay, I do need more omega-3s. I do need more B12s. I do need maybe some lion's mane mushroom extract, and all these different things. And then it's like, oh wow, there's these supplements that really, this stack can really help me perform on a daily basis. But not only perform with output and work, but perform, live better lives with your spouse and your sweethearts and your kids and your parents and your friends, because you're more relaxed and you're balancing that brain activity, and you know how to balance it properly.
Yeah, I think what you've just described there um, as it being like a blood test to make you aware of certain things. Like one of the things in recent years that I've really got into when it comes to optimizing performance is going back and looking at fundamentals. And is there something at a biological level that's just not firing? So a year or so ago, I had a load of bloods done, and I found out that despite the fact that I take magnesium every day, I was really depleted in magnesium. Now, for those of you that don't know, magnesium is the fourth most important mineral, get my words out, in the body. But a lot of us are very deficient in it because of our diets these days and whatnot. And we don't produce it ourselves. So we have to get it from the foods that we eat. And we use a lot of magnesium when we're stressed. So whether we're physically stressed or mentally stressed, we use a lot of magnesium. And I was taking these magnesium tablets, and even though I was taking, I was completely depleted. So all of a sudden I had to take an extended course just to get me back to where I needed to be, and then taper off. But even when I was tapering off, the amount that I was taking was more than is sort of the recommended daily allowance, if you like, because of the way that I use magnesium. So it was really interesting to see. But if I hadn't have had those tests, then I wouldn't have been, I could have just kept going, oh, but this isn't working and this isn't working, and use those excuses until I realized that there's an optimal way of me being able to operate, which is a bit like what you're saying with the meditation. Is like, if you're using the appropriate means for what you are adapted for, really, and operate in that way, or adapt to the way that you're most suited.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I like the way you put that, because I really think will, like in the next, I don't know, maybe it'll take 20 years. You know how we're supposed to have a yearly checkup with the doctor.
Mm.
I think blood tests and brain scans within the next couple decades will be a requirement of the yearly checkup too. And I
Yeah.
highly recommend any listeners out there, and I'm sure you do this, Will, too, it sounds like, but to get a blood test once a year minimum and to get a brain scan once a year minimum also, in addition to
Yeah.
your whatever checkup you're doing.
Well, I must admit, from a brain scan perspective, it's not something that I've done. That said, I've used various different devices that are not brain scanning. Well, I suppose one is brain scanning. I don't know if I've still got it in here that you might be familiar with. I don't know where it is, but I used to have a Muse that I meditated with, which was a brain scanning device that would measure my brain waves as I was meditating.
Yeah.
And I thought that was quite interesting. But I think you're right. And particularly as we see the transition over the next few years, I don't even think it's going to be decades. I think it's going to be the next few years from from medicine and the whole health sector to dealing with health issues after we've got them, to moving to more preventative measures and doing the things beforehand, and reduced insurance premiums because you've had your checkup. And we started to see that. There's a service over here, I'm assuming you've got the same in the US, that's maybe under a different brand, called Thriver, where you sign up on a subscription and they send every 3 or 6 months, they send out blood tests to you in the post. You quickly do them at home and then you post it back off and they email you a report with everything that's going on. So they're trying to make it convenient. It's called Thriver over here. I don't know if you've got an equivalent, Thriver with an A, but yeah, so I think that's really cool. So we spoke a little bit about the brain power. Like you say, it's about optimizing sort of how you can be, but not everybody can come over to Texas, particularly people that a lot of our audience are listening to this in Europe, that can come over to Texas and have one of these brain scans. So what's another way that they can be looking to optimize their brain power without jumping on a plane and getting over there?
Yeah, I actually was talking to a good friend, and he lives in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which is a small city in the north of Thailand. And he was like asking the same question: where can I get a brain scan? And it's easy as simple as just Googling brain scan whatever city you're in, and there'll be some things that'll come up, probably pop up. You can get an EEG or a QEEG. Both are great to start off with. They're a bit different, but QEEG is a bit more in depth, but the EEG is just fine as well. The machine that I have does EEG, and yeah, and just a lot of times sports therapy clinics will have them. Therapy clinics. You can also go to wavimed.com, and that is the company that produced the brain scanner that I have, and I'm not affiliated with them other than I just use their scanner. And it shows locations of people that have their scanners, of clinics that have their scanners throughout the world. And that being said, there's not very many outside the United States. But yeah, that's a few different options. So you could just Google brain scan London and see what comes up, do some research on those clinics, and then pick one.
Sounds great. So when it comes to optimization, we spoke about starting with the brain, and you can do that in terms of doing that, and people can start looking into, should they wish to decide again, do you know what, I'm sold. You've sold me, Will and Chris. I'm going to go and get one of these scans done in whichever city they're in. But let's talk about performance in general. High performing people, whether that's entrepreneurs, business owners, ambitious professionals, whoever they are. What is it that you've seen as the most common consistencies that high performers do to operate at the levels that they operate at?
That's a really good question. I think back to basics, like you were mentioning earlier, Will. Back to basics is one. If you have a goal, the first step is to write it down, right? It's that simple. Put it in a place where you see it on a regular basis. Tell other supportive people about that goal and how they can help hold you accountable. I read some statistics, read or heard on the podcast, one of the two, that if you have a goal, there's about a 10% chance that you'll get it done. If you write it down, I think that jumps up to like 20, 25%. If you tell a supportive person, that jumps up to like 70%. And then if you have somebody hold you accountable or create some sort of accountability system, then that jumps up to like 90 or 95% that you'll actually get that thing done. So if you want to get the things done in your life, your priorities, whatever that may be, maybe start a business, scale a business, get married, find the love of your life, travel the world, whatever it may be, whatever goal you have, lose weight. You need a system, a supportive system that will hold you accountable. So either finding a buddy to do that with, a friend, finding a coach, finding somebody that will not call, will not buy your bullshit when you're making excuses and call you out and help you achieve that goal. And I think that's like back to basics most important thing, and we lose that sometimes, even as high performers that have been at it for a while. Sometimes we even get into the technicalities of this, I need this new supplement or nootropic, or this is what's going to be the thing that takes it to the next level, when we just go back and like, do we have a system of accountability that's really helping us follow through with whatever objectives that we're setting in our lives and our businesses?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there. I mean, my whole coaching philosophy, Chris, is really simple. I've studied an array of different modalities like yourself, and I try and take complex things and make them simple. And for me,
Yeah.
it's clarity, action, and accountability. Clarity of where you are, clarity of where you want to get to, and reverse engineering that process.
Yeah.
Taking intelligent action, which for me is actions that's aligned with your goals and your values, and then active accountability, because most people are liars. They might not lie to other people morally, but they lie to themselves about the
Yeah.
stuff that they really want to do, and whether they actually do it or not. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So yeah, making sure you've got that foundation of the basics in place, and let's assume that many of the people that are listening to this will have those in place. The people now that are looking for the edge, the like you've mentioned nootropics, and you've mentioned lion's mane and a few other sort of supplements that are enhancers. For me, if you haven't got goals and you haven't got accountability, you haven't got a supportive peer group, but you're taking nootropics and you're having brain scans and you're doing lots of these enhancers, in my opinion, the results aren't going to be as good as if you'd have just stuck to the fundamentals.
Quite often. Yeah.
But yeah, what are some of the sort of important enhancers that you maybe use in your own life and you've used with clients to get them to the top of their game?
Well, something you mentioned is like, why do people lie to themselves? And it's a really good question to kind of dive deeper into the brain, the operation of the brain, and why we do lie to ourselves. And we all do from time to time. Really, when the brain's stressed or depressed, when the brain is not in a healthy state, it's much easier to lie to ourselves. And it's not even like us consciously lying to ourselves. It's just us not being aware of the brain processing that's happening in the moment. So you have too much stress or depression, you're exhausted, you don't feel like doing something in the moment, then you may make the excuse to do it when that's something that you really want to do or achieve. Like, just for easy examples, like going to the gym. Set a goal to go to the gym for 5 days a week. Thursday comes up, you had a really hard day at work. You're arguing with your lover and you're just like, nah, I'm not going to go to the gym. Whereas if you had an accountability system set up, it's easier to do that. But what's happening really, it's not that you don't want to go to the gym. It's just the fact that you may not feel like it in the moment because of what's happening with your brain patterns, because you had a hard day at work, right? Maybe there's more cortisol in your body. Maybe there's more tension, and that cortisol is just not making you motivated. So the idea is like, okay, how can we get, if we're in that state, that brain state, how can we shift into a healthier brain state so we can make wiser decisions, right? And let's just say you had a really stressful day at work and you just want to go home and Netflix and chill. And you go home and then you get in an argument with your sweetheart, but your goal is to really go to the gym. You're like, what can you do in this moment to shift your brain state, to release the tension in order to get that type of motivation to go to the gym? Well, you can meditate. You can figure out what type of meditations work for you. Take some deep breaths. You can do some deep breathing, which actually shifts your brain state from a tense state with cortisol running through your body, and putting some healthy neurochemicals, some feel good neurochemicals into your body, where you can make a wiser decision, where you can have a better conversation with your sweetheart. You can go for a walk. You can go for maybe a jog. You can have a conversation with a friend. And it's all a process of finding like how you can shift brain states from this toxic brain state, the difficult brain state, to the healthy brain state where you are getting the feeling of you feel connected to other people, you feel in alignment with what you're doing, you feel like, okay, now I have the motivation and inspiration to go to the gym. Really something that's really easy to do for anybody that works, at a desk, is like if you stand up in a Superman pose for 2 minutes, you will boost your serotonin levels, which is often associated with motivation and connection with other people. You'll boost those serotonin levels and you'll just feel better. It's just like the silliest thing in the world, standing in a Superman pose for 2 minutes, and you just feel better all of a sudden. So the next time like you have a bad day and you don't want to go to the gym or whatever thing that's out there that you don't want to do, or you got into an argument with your sweetheart and you're not feeling good, go outside or go somewhere private and go to the bathroom and just stand in the Superman pose, and you'll just start to feel better. And it's little things like that that can absolutely shift the outcomes of our daily lives and the goals that we're working towards, and our overall well-beingness and feeling in life.
I think what you just said there is such an important message for so many reasons. Peak performance, we've just had the Olympics take place, and you look at those guys who are at the top of their game. So many of those people, particularly the medalists, the reason that they have achieved the success they have is because they've done the small things consistently.
Yeah.
And that little tip that you just used there of getting into the Superman or Superwoman pose, I think it's what the Wonder Woman pose, isn't it? If you use that, is such a useful little hack, because those moments, those days where you think, do you know what, I really don't fancy the gym now, are the days that will cost you the result that you want.
100%.
And when it doesn't matter, I'll just skip it today, or no, I'm not really feeling it. Those odd occasions, they're the times when the people that are at the top of their game, they did make those times count. So to have that little hack, and there's a great TED talk on it. I'm sure you've seen it, by Amy Cuddy, talking about the power of using your body, because essentially we can use our physiology to change our psychology. And like you say, the chemicals, the neurochemicals that get produced are so powerful. And for people that right now thinking, right, well, I want to get to the top now, I want to be at that top level, just reminding yourself it's those days when you think, it doesn't matter. Doing those days are what's going to make the difference long term. That's my personal opinion. So
I agree with you 100%, man.
So on that note, so one of the things I want to talk about, because you brought it up, and I think it's really important for people that ears were pricked by this. You said about ADHD and ADD and how people that have these, what might be regarded as challenges, that these diagnoses that are given by doctors to people that then they take on as an identity that then has an impact on them physically. Can we just sort of go back to that quickly and share your thinking around people that have got ADHD and ADD can overcome it in the way that you mentioned?
Yeah, I'm in no way a specialist or professional in that regard. My job is scanning the brain and sending it off to that brain scan off to the doctor to get the best recommendations. We have interviewed Dr. Andrew Hill, who's one of the top neuroscientists in the world, and he's got basically a brain gym. He's got a few of them, I think one in Europe and then two in the States, and one on the East Coast and the West Coast. And at the brain gym, it's the concept is just like a gym. You go in there, you get a brain scan, you find out how your brain is operating, and then there in the brain gym, it's called Peak Performance Lab. Peak Peak Labs, excuse me. And there in the brain gym, you can do the brain exercises or techniques or whatever you need to do to kind of optimize that performance. He was the one that really started talking about um, the how you can eliminate ADD and ADHD, and how you can thoroughly see like what's happening with dementia and Alzheimer's years in advance. And it's a process of like say you do have ADD and ADHD. I would say the vast majority of entrepreneurs have some sort of like ADD, like that's a common term for us, in high performers, right? And what is it neurochemically? ADD and ADHD, or that entrepreneur ADD at least, is like high dopamine levels. We're getting more dopamine than the average individual, which makes us excited more. Which, you know, when we have an idea, we get thoroughly excited about it, and then we do whatever we need to do to make that idea happen that we really like. And yeah, but he said through brain scans and through proper brain training, it doesn't even take that long with neurofeedback to help eliminate ADD and ADHD, if that ADD and ADHD is destructive in a person's life. And quite often for children that have so much energy and parents not knowing how to handle them, sometimes it is, you know, improperly diagnosed of like, it's just a kid with a lot of energy levels and the parent doesn't want to deal with it. But sometimes there is, you know, the brain functioning of ADHD, which is very difficult for some children to handle. Then you go into the brain gym, do the brain scans, do neurofeedback with proper trainers, and it helps to, and significantly, the majority of the time, which is impressive, it'll eliminate it. And it's not uncommon anymore for people that are doing that type of work.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting topic for sure. And
Yeah.
I know that there's more and more research coming out. And my personal opinion, and it very much is an opinion on a lot of this from the research that I've done and what I've come across and experienced with other people, is it depends on what they're doing as well. You know,
Sure.
if they're spending time on tasks that fulfill them and they're important to them and they're things that they value, then all of a sudden that concentration and that focus just goes up significantly. Whereas if it's not so much, then they struggle to stay engaged. So that's something to be really, really mindful of as well. But like you said, because the dopamine hits that come, new dopamine hit, it can have an impact for sure.
Something that's really fascinating too is just the effects of different type of music on different types of people's brains. So somebody with ADD and ADHD will not feel productive with the same music that maybe my brain operates through, or somebody else's brain. Some people need classical music. Some people need intense music. Some people need high levels of volume. Some people need the low volume levels of volume. For me, I need like a steady beat with no lyrics, and that is quiet in the background or in my headphones, that doesn't distract me. And then there's this was actually a test that's been done with ADD and ADHD children, is that quite often they need extremely loud music with like heavy metal type of or, you know, EDM type of like beats, like loud beats, and that will calm a child down, or somebody with ADD and ADHD. Quite often that will calm them down in order to have the emotional or deep conversations they need to have with their parents or spouses or family members or doctors or whomever. And it's mind blowing for parents when you can put this, you know, this music on, it's which drives a parent crazy, but all of a sudden they see their child just kind of calm down and get at peace, and then they're ready to have a solid conversation with their parents about whatever they need to talk about. But if they don't have that music, it does, their brain is just making up for all that intensity. And so it's fascinating that just we're learning about that, that you can find out what music really works for you, and it calms your brain down, and it really, and then some of it is much different than it is for other people. Again, back to the meditation thing, if you have somebody that really has a lot of high levels of dopamine, ADD, ADHD, Zen music is going to drive them it's going to be nearly impossible for them to meditate with their eyes closed. But you put on some in the background, like they calm down and they can start to meditate, which is fascinating. Yeah.
It really is. It really is. So if you're someone that's struggling with that, then test it. You know,
Test it.
I definitely find personally that certain music impacts me at certain points. So there's sometimes I want to listen to EDM, sometimes I want to listen to classical music. Some like if I'm concentrating, if I'm doing real focus concentration work, I'll quite there's a particular classical music artist that I love listening to. But it's fun that sometimes I like to listen to. It's really interesting because music ultimately can impact your mood, right? It really can, and being mindful of that and using music in different ways. There's certain music that I absolutely would never listen to unless I'm doing really concentrated work that I really want to focus and enjoy. I tell you a website that you may have come across. Are you familiar with Brain FM?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I've had Brain FM for years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I've come across it a few years back, and for those of you that don't know Brain FM, I highly recommend it. So they've got various different sounds. I'm not going to say music; it's not music. Various different sounds that will change your brain waves according to what you want. So, for example, you've got the different brainwave states. So, for example, alpha if you want to be more creative, beta we're kind of operating in every day anyway. So they'll have particular music that within like 10 minutes, I think it's scientifically proven to change your brainwaves to be more creative, which they've got certain sounds for that. Then they've got brainwaves to get you into deep relaxation, like meditation, so that you can just literally stick your headphones in and it will change your brainwaves to move you into a meditative state. And then if you struggle with sleep, for example, they've got the sleep one, which will move you into a delta brainwave. It's fascinating what these sounds can do.
Yeah, we've interviewed the CEO of Brain FM on our podcast, but we also interviewed the founder of Focus at Will, which is another type of music, brainwave music, productivity music. I use Brain FM for 4 or 5 years, loved it, and then I stopped using it just because I just got on my other things. And then I interviewed not too long ago the founder of Focus at Will, and I'm really loving Focus at Will. One of the things that they do is you take a test before they give you music that they recommend for your brain, and so you do this personality test, and then they say, okay, based on your answers, this is going to be the best music for you. And so now I use Focus at Will on a regular basis, and interviewing both those guys was absolutely fascinating on learning the technology behind music, how they're working with neuroscientists to find the best music for different types of individuals. And I would recommend, I don't know if it kind of still is, but it used to be a thing that we would ask people like, what's your favorite type of music? And quite often somebody would say a genre of music, and they wouldn't listen to pretty much anything else except that genre of music. Maybe it was country, maybe it's rap, maybe it's classical, maybe it's jazz. And I think anybody out there that only listens to one genre of music, I think you're doing your brain and yourself an injustice, because if you start to listen to other types of music, it can open up not only areas of your brain that aren't opened up on a regular basis, but even like your emotions in your heart, and it can produce massive shifts. And so, if anybody asks me like what type of music do I like anything with a good beat or a good message, because there's different times in our life, just like you mentioned, Will, like different times, and even throughout our day, that we need one type of music versus the other type of music. And if we're just listening to one genre, it can kind of close us off, close our brains off, close our minds off into that only that type of genre, and we miss out on so much more of just our own well-being and potential by not like tapping into other different types of music.
I completely agree with you. I'm going to share something here on the podcast for the first time ever, sharing this publicly.
Okay.
So this is where I'm either going to lose credibility or people are going to find this interesting. So one of the things that I find that I really like is certain Disney songs, because I wrote a blog for the Huffington Post, I don't know, 6 years ago, about what is Disney really doing to children. And if you haven't read it, Google it, Will Polston, what's Disney doing to children, and read it. And it was my whole ethos of what was Walt Disney really doing. Now, if you look at any Disney story, they've all got pretty much the same theme. Someone starts off typically in a bit of a situation. If they're not in a situation, they find themselves in a situation. It's a typical hero's journey, right? And then they find themselves in a situation. When you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. Like, if you look at the undertone, the message that he's actually trying to weave into kids, like, if people take on that belief and then apply it in their life, great things can happen, which comes back to this whole thing we started talking about: having a goal, breaking it down, knowing what you want. And there's certain Disney songs that just absolutely make the hairs on my arms just stand up. One of them is from The Lion King, which is He Lives in You, the reprised version on the sort of the main Disney album. I just listen to that over and over and over again, and it just does something for me, you know. It's a Disney song. Like, there's not many 30-year-olds that will openly say, I like listening. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. It's not the only music I listen to, but there's certain points when I think, no, I want that really uplifting, because there's powerful music into it. There's a powerful message behind it. You listen to the words in it, and it's like, wow. I did so one of my mentors is a guy called Dr. John D. Martini, who no doubt you're familiar with, also in Texas there. And one of the things that he said, if there's certain music that you like that does have lyrics, go and read the lyrics. Because quite often you might just sing along because you know them or whatever, but you're just doing that unconsciously. When you stop and read them, the message in there of some of your favorite songs is profound when we actually stop and look at them. And I did this on a few songs that I really, really like even dance music that I stopped and I didn't print them out. I went on Google and Googled them and was like, wow, no wonder I love this song.
Yeah.
Look at the lyrics. They're so empowering.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really, really, really cool thing to do for sure.
I think one of the things that I do and recommend anybody does, if you hear a song that motivates you and makes you feel good, like, download it, buy it, do whatever you have so you have it on your regular playlist. And those are like, you have a playlist of songs that really, really inspire you. I'll hear a song and I'll buy it on Apple Music, right? And I'll listen to it over and over and over again. And maybe, you know, I listen to it for 6 months or 9 months, and then it's kind of like off into the next song that really kind of inspires me. But, you know, that music, you know, we go back to the brain states. You're having a bad day. You're in an unhealthy brain state. You can feel it. You can feel the tension in your body. You're not motivated to go to the gym or do whatever you need to do. The right song can absolutely shift that. In a matter of 2, 3, 4 minutes, you hear that music and all of a sudden, now I'm pumped. Now I'm ready to go to the gym. Now I'm ready to work. And so for anybody, like, just playing with the idea of like, okay, what music makes me feel good, even if it's in a type of music that you don't normally listen to. Does it really make me feel good? How do I feel when I hear this song? Is it lighting me up? And if it is, like, bring more of that type of music into your life. Even like, does this song make me relax? Does it make me chill? Bring more of that into to your life. Like, I love, right now I'm into Cuban music, but I also love Brazilian music and samba. And so, like, I just put it on in the background, like down in our living room and in our kitchen. And it's just so nice to kind of walk. It feels like you're walking into a Brazilian cafe when you hear the music in the background, you know. And what really works for you and what does not. And so that's a great practice for anybody. And it's just something as simple as music can change your life as well.
Absolutely. And on that note, for everyone that's listening, a little free gift from me, I suppose. So we have a playlist called the Evolve Network on Spotify, which you can just search, and anyone can download. And when we used to run our events, obviously COVID stopped us running all our events. We run events all around the UK, and we played that playlist at all of our events. So it's some uplifting music with certain lyrics that I've purposely handpicked every single song on that playlist. So it's the sort of place you can stick on and go, wow, this is quite uplifting. So for anyone listening, head to Spotify, the Evolve Network, hit that playlist up, and let me know what you think.
Yeah, amen. I'm going to check that out myself too. So
sounds good.
Yeah.
So, but before we look at rounding up, we spoke about brain power, we spoke about performance, we spoke a bit about productivity in terms of sort of getting in the appropriate state and doing things when you're maybe procrastinating. But ultimately, Chris, every single one of us has got 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. What are the things that for you are absolutely vital that people should be doing to improve their productivity?
For me, what is absolutely vital is three things in a day that I need to be productive and fulfilled throughout a day. I need meditation, exercise, and planning. And so I need a thorough planning process, which I have, for that has, what I want to achieve over the long term, the goals I want to achieve over my life, the next 10 years, the next 1 year, the next 3 months. And so every week, what I do Monday morning, the first thing I do is I plan out my week, and it's pretty thoroughly planned. All the meetings that I have, the 6 or 7 major outcomes that I need to achieve, and I plan that every Monday. And then those are in alignment with my quarterly goals, and those quarterly goals are in alignment with what I want to achieve in a year. And that yearly focus is in alignment with what I want to achieve over the next 10 years. And those 10 years are in alignment with what I want to achieve over the course of my life. And so it's a bit of reverse engineering, but if you take some time and kind of plan those out, do some journaling, plan all those things out. Now, not everything's etched in stone. So if you're having a hard time deciding on what you want 10 years down the line, it can change in a year. It can change in 6 months. It's okay. And but with the shorter term goals, they're a bit more etched in stone, because you do want to achieve those 6 or 7 major goals that you have every week. And then the evening before, what I do is I write down 3 most important tasks for the next day that I want to achieve, that are in alignment with those 6 or 7 things that I want to achieve throughout the week. That's in alignment with the quarterly goals. That's in alignment with the yearly goals and 10-year goals in life. So it's another system. And we talked about, being accountable, finding the right, being accountable by finding the right system. Finding the right system in anything you want to change in your life is absolutely essential to go back to, because if you are having those bad days and you don't want to do the thing, then you go back to the system and you just rely on whatever system you're using. And that's that planning, that weekly planning is my system for productivity. So I need that planning. I need exercise on a regular basis. I need meditation on a regular daily basis. And so to knock out the vast majority of questioning myself and lack of clarity, I just get up and I meditate and I exercise first thing in the morning. Those are done. I know I need those to have a good day. I had planned the week and the night before what I was going to do throughout the day. So when I sit down to my desk, it's boom, ready to go. Everything is laid out. I don't need to question anything for that day. Everything is good. And if you want like the weekly planning process, we have that, and we can share that link with you guys. But it's easy. It's like just a 6-7 step process that you lay out and you go through and you plan your week out.
Well, what we'll do, absolutely send me the link. We'll put it in the show notes. So for everyone that's listening to this now, it's in the show notes. Head to the show notes and you can find out. I love that. Very simple. Exercise, meditation, planning. And I think I agree with you, which comes back to the fundamentals. It comes back to the fundamentals, having those fundamentals in place. Yeah, you can do all these little these little things to optimize, and whether it's things like your Pomodoro techniques and all these other little things from productivity, but it comes back to having the fundamentals in place first of all. So sounds
simplicity and the fundamentals, like we talked about that earlier, right? Trying to do too many little things to optimize your performance and productivity, and all of a sudden you've got too many little things that you're trying to do, and you're not productive or optimizing, right? So finding the simplicity in the fundamentals and using that system to on a regular basis to be productive and optimized.
Absolutely. I think what you just said there is, so many people I know, they try and add all these little things in, and then they come, Will, I'm so overwhelmed. It's like, yeah, of course, you're trying to add in all these lots and lots of tiny things rather than just nailing one thing, and one thing that's going to make a quantum leap rather than lots and lots of tiny tweaks. So for sure. Anything else, Chris? We could talk all day about brain power, performance, productivity. I'm sure we could. Anything else that you think is particularly useful for people that listen to this right now to know about, whether that's as a tip, but before we get on to where people can find you?
No, I think we touched on it really well. fundamentals, simplicity, find a system to hold you accountable, find a system for whatever you're doing in life. It makes it much easier. And surround yourself with the right people, supportive people, right? Accountability partners, friends that can support you in these goals, even if they're not accountability partners. And get a brain scan. And there you go.
Sounds good. We covered a lot. Well, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much. Like I said, we'll put the link to the productivity resource that you just mentioned in the show notes. If people are thinking, right, this sounds really interesting, maybe they are thinking, do you know what, I want to get on the plane. I'm going to come into Texas. I want to come and have a brain scan. Where can people find you?
So the best place is thebusinessmethod.com. And then we have a link on there that says brain scans. You can find more information there. Contact us, find the details, learn exactly what the brain scanner is doing in more detailed. And then for a lot of the listeners, this may apply as well. But we do our podcast, and on Mondays and Fridays, from all the high performers that come on the podcast, we take out the high performance tips in short 2 to 10 minute episodes, and we publish those on Monday and Friday. And so you can get high performance tips from some of the top investors in the world, some of the top entrepreneurs in the world, some of the top athletes in the world, in just those short little bits. And it's cool because, we do have busy days, but if you have a short little, high performance tip you can learn on a regular basis, like it's pretty powerful while you're standing in line somewhere or riding in the metro or the subway somewhere. So that's another place as well.
Absolutely. For sure. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And thank you for everything you've shared, and look forward to catching up soon.
Dude, it's been an honor to be on the show. Thanks for having me, Will.
Everyone that's listening, until next time, make it happen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast. Make sure you join Will's free Facebook group, the Make It Happen community. Please support the show by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Share this episode with at least one friend you think would benefit from it, and give Will a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. Until next time, make it happen.